Welcome back to another episode of How Do Artists Make Money? The show where we try to answer the age-old question, how do artists make money? Today I'm joined by Emonee LaRussa, who's a motion graphics artist who primarily does brand deals on social media. And I felt like our entire conversation, she was pointing out everything that I'm doing wrong. She has a very clear and focused perspective on how to be consistent on social media and how to build a community and how to use all that momentum to create a business. Let's get into the conversation. Emonee, thanks for joining me today. Let's start with the basics. How would you describe yourself professionally?
I would say that I am a motion graphics artist, visual effects artist, motion design artist together. And I make a whole bunch of content. I do tutorials. I make brand partnership stuff, and I just make art now full time.
And what does that operation look like? Is it just you doing all this?
Yeah. So every now and then when I get crazy busy, I'll try to hand off video editing or something else where it's I need extra hands in this. But for the most part, I would say 98% of the time, it's me. I mean, I also have an agent, so they facilitate contracts and stuff. So I have a team. But other than that, when it comes to the art, I'm kind of in charge of that.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation where it's pretty much just me, then the agent on the business side of things.
Yeah.
Well, so what kind of work are you doing that produces income?
Yeah, so I fully make an income off of paid partnerships. So typically how it works is a brand sees my stuff or an ad agency sees my stuff, and then they reach out, and then I go, thank you so much for reaching out. You could talk to my agent about more details. And then from there, they get all the contract stuff taken care of, and then I go and make that art. So typically I make about 2 to 3 partnerships a month. Sometimes it's less because I could just focus on one piece. And sometimes I take a little bit of time off of paid partnerships to focus on trying to build my portfolio so that I could get more paid partnerships in the end.
I'm curious because what you're describing is exactly what I do. I think we're on the same wavelength of business structure. I'm curious, because you're operating that same way, how do you see social media? Because I was looking at your YouTube, and I think you have the same thing going on where you might do a long form video every once in a while, but it's mostly just shorts. And do you see those kind of how I do it, that they're advertising to capture those brands?
Yeah. So I think when we think about short form content versus long form content, we have to think about how we want to impact a community, because the reality is there's no way that you're going to create a strong community with just short form content. I can make viral videos, but that doesn't necessarily turn into a loyal community. And to me, that feels like a more long lasting career in trying to invest in that rather than just the quick little snippets. But I have moved towards Instagram as my main source of making content. And then YouTube and TikTok gets the leftovers of here, I'll post it there too. And that's just because even though Instagram doesn't have the views to money ratio like YouTube and TikTok does, the market there for partnerships is bigger than any other market for short form content. And so it's I could make a YouTube video and it could potentially get a few $1,000s, or I could invest my time into short form entertaining content that could potentially turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars for paid partnerships and stuff. So I think in terms of long-term investments, I try to find a good middle ground of tutorials that I could then turn into entertaining things that could still build a community that finds value in me as a person. So dip my toes in both a little bit.
Yeah, so you get you're doing platform income as well, right? On Instagram and TikTok. We don't have that here in Canada.
What? Well, to be fair, Instagram is basically zero. Like
Okay.
I made like 46 million views, and I think I got like 5 cents. So
What?
like, but TikTok is where it's at. But you have to like reach a certain threshold. Like it has to be over a 60-second video. It has to like reach within the community guidelines. So I'm not a fan of TikTok anymore, honestly. Like it's like leftover residue.
When you say community, is that a literal community that you built, or is that just kind of how you think of your audience?
I think of a community that I've built because I know a lot of people that aren't in like my art niche, but like still consume that type of content. And I feel like it's because of the like environment that I try to keep on my page. Like I really try to be motivating and inspiring in the sense of like, I am someone who is not born with resources or talent. Like I promise you can do this too. And also like being like a woman of color in this space, and it's like look what could happen. Like this is crazy, right? Like this can happen to you. So I think trying to put my efforts into like doing that and advocating has built like a strong community that I feel like is within my own group of people.
That's a really great way to look at the people who are watching your stuff as a community.
I love it. Like I genuinely like whenever I work with a brand, they usually will reach out afterwards and are like, we usually never get this much positive feedback. Like they're used to just getting like just absolutely demolished in the comments. And I think it's just because I genuinely appreciate like my audience to where like I want to respond back, and I want to like there's so many times where I get messages from people who are like, I didn't think that you were going to respond back. And I'm like, I take time to like be very thoughtful in that because they're taking the time to like my stuff. They're taking the time to, you know, like make sure that I have a solid income, and like that's the least I can do. And so I think by having that type of mindset has really like curated a beautiful environment. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to guide every decision, because you're not thinking, how am I going to get the most views? How am I going to, clickbait these viewers? You're thinking, yeah, what's the best way to serve this community that supports me?
And it's good for when you want to start doing new things. Like if I was like, oh, I'm going to start getting into sewing, like would I know definitively that my audience is going to support me in that? I feel more confident in an audience that supports me rather than just the art itself, which I take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, to your point of telling that story that anyone can do it, that you've learned all this from the ground up kind of a thing. I think your videos are really good at that, and how you layer in, that story of like, oh, I made this in my bedroom. You recently did a YouTube partnership. You did the header, the logo, and the behind the scenes was framed in that I made this with just a green screen in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And that kind of blows my mind, because I get so caught up in the literal of everything, where I'm like, no, a behind the scenes is there's an idea, and then there's this step, and there's this step. And I kind of miss that bigger story of the kind of emotional aspect of it.
Yeah, I genuinely think that in order to provide value that feels like, because there's the tutorial aspect of it where it's like, I'm getting value from learning this, but how do I reach to people who may not find value in that because they don't do this? What's something that I can like attach so many people who have never or will never do visual effects? I think one thing that I wanted to encapsulate in that is like, I have been doubted, and I know everyone has been doubted. And look at this, look what I've been able to do to overcome that. And I think so many more people can relate to that. And to me, like I had so many people reach out to me and was like, this, I was crying. Like I had like, and I feel like that, it makes me feel so good. Like it makes me feel like I'm doing my job and creating a meaningful story. Like the same way a director does for a film, you know, like where like, they're like, oh, this movie changed my life. Like I know a director feels so good when they hear that. Not that I'm at that level, but like
I'm so inspired already. Walking away to, yeah, because I'm so stuck literally in the literal aspect of what I do. So that's really inspiring. I was watching even your tutorials. Every little moment is you're adding motion graphics to every possible thing in a really, really interesting and visual way.
Because I have a Gen Z audience. Like I have a Gen Z millennial audience where they're constantly being fed short form content. So it's like, how do I stimulate their minds?
So that's interesting. Is that coming from you being excited to do it, or are you thinking this might work on the audience a bit better?
So the thing that I've learned about creating content is that if I want to dominate my field, I need to dominate every field. And I think in order to do that, I need to create something that is going to be taken in by the masses. So I can create something that is motion graphics focused, and I'll reach to the 1% of viewers that actually like motion graphics. Or I could reach the majority, which is entertaining content. And so I think that opens the door for people who may not be in my niche, but can still like enjoy the information. Like I did one that was like, why are green screens, like blue screens being used more in Hollywood today than green screens are? And there's so many people who have no interest in that at all, feel like they could take the information away and be like, oh, that's a fun fact I didn't know. But like, I don't think that if I scoped it in a way that was just motion like graphics focus, that they would want to take that information in. So my idea is that if I can create something that is entertaining and stimulating so the majority of people can consume, then they can find value in that. So yeah, and knowing my audience is important. Like that really does change the way that I make content. Because if I had a predominantly older crowd, like I could probably get away with making like really bad AI stuff and they'd be like, wow, that's awesome. But like I have a young audience that like really likes that. What the tactic, it's called a dual stimulation tactic. So it's basically where you have footage on top and like something happening at the bottom. This all stemmed from, I'm a yapper, so stop me if I like.
No, this is super interesting. I've never heard that term before.
So like it started from like TikTok, where they started doing Reddit stories with Subway Surfer. And so they would tell these, like, they were interesting stories, but it wasn't enough to just look at the text, and people don't want to read. And so by being able to play something in the background, you're honing in on neurodivergent viewers that can hear a story, but also hold in that stimulating part of the brain that just like wanders with the Subway Surfer. And so I essentially do the same thing where I have talking head footage of me talking about really boring stuff like the camera sensor and, you know, why green emits more light than others. And then I show like visuals underneath of all this fun stuff happening. That makes it to where people can consume like this educational information a lot more easier. And so that all kind of like goes back to like just knowing my audience, and because it's my job, you know, like this is what we do for a living. And the same way that I used to look up YouTube tutorials on how to make art, I'm now looking up like a whole bunch of stuff on how to like make entertaining content.
That's fascinating to me, because it sounds like entertainment really guides a lot of your decisions. Whereas I know for me, having come from an animation background where, you know, I learned with a pencil on paper, drawing, where every line is something, like every line takes effort and you have to create from a blank page. So I've always operated from a place of clarity. So when I think of title cards, I'm like black Arial text on a white background. hold it, let people see it, move on. And I think from that clarity position, so much, probably to my detriment, because I'm not thinking of entertainment at all. It's probably hurt so many of my videos to not like spice things up and make it more entertaining.
I mean, it really boils down to the way that I look at it is the formula that we see in films. When I went to film school, one of the like most memorable thing that they taught was if it doesn't have a purpose, don't put it in the film. And so everything that I do has the intention to provoke an emotion. Like what that emotion is going to be like it's like a string that I feel like is attached to every decision that I'm making. If this decision that I'm making isn't attached to the emotion that I first wrote off, then like there's no reason to put it in. So like everything that I do is so intentional in the sense of trying to create that emotion that in turn has like this entertaining factor to it. Like you're not going to watch a film and not feel an emotion from it. Like, oh, well, I didn't feel anything. That film was great. Said no one. Like, it's always like, that film made me cry. That film made me mad, you know? And it's kind of the same realm of using that act structure that you would see in a film, but like in a formulaic like content, you know? It
probably speaks to why you're doing so many brand deals and they're so successful, because they don't feel like, you know, I'm here to represent the brand and here are the brand points. And, you know,
I hate those so much.
But I fall into that trap quite a bit. I feel like I miss the mark on some jobs when it might be a bad fit where they're like, here's all the points you need to say and get this information across. And I get into that literal spot of like, okay, I have to just be a spokesperson. And my brain never goes to that place of like, oh, what's the emotional through line and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I take pride in is reoccurring clients. Like it's not enough to just get the brand deal, but did they come back? Like that's such like a, ooh. And to me, I find that to be such a motivating factor. And so the two things that are going to affect that is the overall performance and the community's like investment in it. And so I feel like whenever I have taken on a project and I have to include, and shout out to this partnership where I have to include all this lingo that you're totally not going to like hearing. And like, how do I spin that to make it to where people want to invest the time into it? Like, how do I make it stimulating enough to where someone would want to see this? And I try to be so slick with it that sometimes people will be like, oh my God, I didn't even realize this was an ad. And I'm like, oh my God. But like, I do all the like correct, like, you know, legal stuff where I am telling people that this is a partnership with blah, blah, blah. But like, they feel like this is just a genuine video because there's so much like effort into it. I think a lot of times I see people who are like, come with me when I show you this makeup brand. And it's like, I don't like commercials. No one likes commercials. So like feed me something that is going to go not just like above and beyond, but like further than that, because you're now selling me something.
I think there's an aspect to that of knowing your strengths and what works well for yourself. I'm starting to realize that some of the jobs I do that are a little bit too brand heavy and delivering those talking points, I really struggle with. And the best ones for me is when a company's like, just make something and like we'll let this stuff ride in the caption or something like that, but we'll basically just sponsor one of your crazy ideas or your art.
That's
or something.
The best. And it's like they're gonna get way better videos when you do that. Like I'm happy to shout out Intel because they are so like they're the best clients I did
a video with them.
Oh my gosh. Like the team there, like they fully trust me. And like, and I think I've earned that trust over a little bit of time, but like, they'll just be like, here's the product, do what you want with it. Come up with an idea for it. And I'll come up with an idea and they're like, a majority of the time, like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I can't think of a time where they're like, nah, let's not do it. And to me, those have been my best partnerships. Those have been the videos that I feel like have been really awesome. And the ones that have been like, were ones where they were micromanaging. And those are not fun. But that's with any client, really.
Yeah. And there tends to be a relationship with the bigger the brand and the bigger the budget, the more I find the more they step back, just because they can afford to take so many swings at video content. Yeah. Whereas the smaller the company gets, the more they're like, this is our budget. It has to work. We need to get it all in there.
Yeah, for sure.
On the income side of things, how does your income kind of break down? Is it like me where it's like 95% brand work?
Yeah. Now I mean, I have other streams of income in terms of like YouTube and TikTok. Like I get a few $100s a month here. But majority is just paid partnerships. That is, I feel like, the ultimate dream for a lot of artists. Like, and I may be speaking for artists, but like, oh my gosh, there's so much flexibility with being able to do what you want. And then it's like, and this was partnered by blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's it? I feel like I am living my dream right now. I feel so incredibly grateful that like, I try to explain what I do for a living. It's like, oh yeah, I make art in my room all day.
Do you have any surprising sources of income beside brand deals or platform revenue?
Every now and then, I did like a Skillshare course like years ago, and every now and then I'll get like a flux of money on there. But I've only done one course, and it was like a hour and a half long course. And so it's kind of like random, like, oh, that's cool. But other than that, I can't. Do you have any?
Licensing is probably the most surprising, just because my clips are so short and universal. Like once in a while, I'll like America's Funniest Home Videos will email, and I'll sell a group of clips to them. Like so that's probably the most surprising.
That's so sick. Yeah, no, that is. No one wants my videos like that.
I think mine are so they're silent and they work in every region. There's that aspect to
point.
it.
Yeah. I have thought about like how I can be interpreted by like the masses, and I think the thing that I've like learned with just like learning my audience is I have a predominantly like female audience. And it's great because it allows me to be very comfortable, like online with like how I dress and stuff. But every now and then I'm like reminded of like, there's crazy men online. It's like, yeah, but like, I feel like having that type of support has always been so good. But what's crazy is that I feel like I have so much female support from all over the world. And I think it's primarily from videos where I'm not talking. Like my most diverse comments are going to be on the videos where it's just like, you could just see it before and after. Like you don't need to know what I'm saying. You just understand the context of it. I think not having words in your videos could be so powerful in the sense of like building a big community of people who are non-English speakers.
I've really leaned into that throughout the years. With brand deals being such a big part of your business, what's the primary way you're kind of stoking that fire daily?
I think the big thing, obviously, like I want my numbers to look great. Like I want to make sure that when a brand does approach me, they're like, oh yeah, we know what we're getting because we see that the numbers are good. Like, and I feel like that allows me to have like more of a say when it comes to like the pre-production and stuff, where it's like, you should trust me because I know what I'm talking about. But also I'm very much an advocate for like dress for the job that you want. So if I want to get a brand deal with a fashion brand, then do like a video with that fashion brand before they even get the opportunity to. I think that has always been kind of like the forefront of how I could establish myself as like a contender for that job by showing up to the interview like already prepared. You know, that's kind of like how I get my foot in the door with some partnerships, is just making art for them before they even get the chance to come to me.
I think that speaks to your perspective on building a community. and knowing what works. And it's almost, it's this journey through every new thing that you make. Whereas I feel like I'm reinventing myself every time I make a video. I haven't really thought about community. Like, I think about community in the way that it's supportive, but I've never thought about my audience in terms of like, oh, this is the theme of the community, or this is what they want, and this is how I can support them. So I feel like every video I'm just reinventing and trying, like, I'll try this random new thing and that random new thing, and some will fail, and there's no consistency of numbers in any of that. So it's really interesting to hear your take on that.
I will say, though, there are ways to have that consistency. And I think the big thing, how you're talking about like investing in the community, not only is it beneficial in the sense of like you're building relationships. So like those type of relationships are things that live way longer. So like when you try new endeavors, they're more likely to support you because that's your friend. Like, think about like when you have a friend on Instagram that you claim as a friend, but you've never actually met them in real life. It's like, oh, well, it's because you have a connection with them. And so if somebody can feel like that with you, they're like, oh yeah, my friend's trying this thing out. Like, I always want my followers, my community to feel like I am a friend. And so if that's established, that's great. But even on a like finance level, 80% of people are more likely to buy from a company when they feel like they know the founder. So like, just like people are willing to invest their money into relationships. And so it's when you can establish that, not only is it beneficial financially, relationship wise, but even on Instagram prioritizes relationships. So when you put out content, and it's going to put out content to people that they think is more likely to respond to that. And the people who are more likely to respond to that are friends. That's why when you open Instagram and you see an engagement photo, it's like one of the first things you see, because it's like, oh, this is my friend, they're posting this thing. And so not only does it affect your pockets, but it literally affects the algorithm. So like how you interact with people, comments, stories, messages, like that will change the way that Instagram is like, oh, they must want to see their new post because they just had a conversation with them. And so it's like that type of investment isn't just like, it encapsulates everything,
I've never thought of this, but it clicked as you were saying that. There are people on Instagram that as soon as I see their post, I hit like, and then I watch the thing.
Exactly.
And then there are the people where I'm like, nah, you didn't get, you don't get my like, and I keep going.
Because you've built a social connection with them. So it's like, regardless of whatever you post, I'm gonna like it. Like, it's going to have to take a lot for me not to like one of your posts. And it's because you want to see your friends thrive. And there's a reason why you like seeing your friend who owns a business thrive over McDonald's thrive. Like, you're not going to like McDonald's stuff because that's a brand. Whereas like, you're more likely to like your friend's stuff because you have a connection with them.
Some deep psychology.
I know.
I'll just end on some quick bonus questions. I'm curious, in the last year or two, has there been a big mistake or a wrong turn you've made that you wish you could have done better?
I wish that there was some brands that I like took on that I was like, I felt it in my gut that I shouldn't have taken it on. And I knew they were going to be a pain. And I did it anyways, and they ended up being a pain. And
I saw your video, the contract one that went south. Yeah, I don't mean to launch it.
I'm not going to say the company, but it's a company that everyone knows and uses. Like,
I couldn't believe they tried to almost like
the audacity.
Like yeah, because the big point was that there was some they gave some bad information, and then they tried to hold it over you and said, make us 3 more and we'll keep going with the contract.
I was
bribery.
Like, there's no way. And what's crazy is that if they would have just waited until the time that I said would have been good, like, let's wait till Monday. if they would have just waited, I would have been in the clear. But they were like, no, you need to post it right now. And then afterwards, they're like, all right, how about you make us 3 more pieces of content? And I was like, there's no way. So I ended up making them those 3 pieces of content. And they were like, it's not good enough. And then they X'd me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely a mistake that I made.
Jobs go south. I've had a bunch of them that have gone bad.
I
have to get into them, but
for sure.
Yeah,
like,
it happens. It's terrible.
How did you handle it? Like, what did you?
It hasn't happened. My agent is pretty good at looking out for that stuff. So it hasn't happened in the last few years. It happened way more early on.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky in that. But yeah, earlier on when there was less stakes involved. Now there's like too much at stake now to have anything happen. Yeah. So I'm sorry that happened to you. That's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely, it was honestly, it was so perfectly aligned because at the time I was switching agents. And so a lot of stuff got missed because like literally it was like right in the middle of this contract is when I switched agents because my previous agent left. And so I was like, it was just one of those things. But honestly, like I didn't look at the contract. Like I don't look at, let me ask you this. Do you look at contracts?
No, that's my agent.
I don't.
I think the important point there is that agents aren't, people think of them as just negotiators and dealing with the business, but a big part of their job is protecting. Yeah. And my agent, the first thing he does is comb through every contract and redline stuff like, no. Routinely, they use like boilerplate contracts that say, we can use your likeness for the eternity. And, my agent will be like, no, how about 3 months? And then we'll negotiate. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, that's definitely
agents protect you. That's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Final bonus question. I'm curious, what is your biggest goal in the near future and what are you doing to get there? Okay. So I've been secretly working on something. And I've been investing a lot of my time and I've not been taking partnerships because I've been working on this, which has been scary. But the way that I've been reframing it is I'm trying to create a way that is building passive income so that I can ultimately live my goal, which is work less and get paid more. Because I would love to just be able to make art and more tutorials and stuff and not have this feeling of it needs to lead to a job. Like I make more income than I could have imagined. Like, especially like starting out in this industry, I never thought that making the annual income that I do now was even possible. And so instead of like feeling like I want more, I want more in the sense of being able to build like generational wealth between me and my family and my community and being able to like continue doing stuff with Jumpstart and not feeling like I have to fundraise, but like literally just putting in my own money. Like that would be the real dream. So yeah, I think after this huge project is done, I am praying that it goes well and I could take some time off and work less and still have income that's coming in that will allow me to do the things that I want to do. That's a very positive and well-intentioned plan for the future. I like it. And I wish you all the best on the launch of your secretive project.
Thank you.
That's great. Emonee, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I'm such a fan.
Likewise. All right. Thank you. As always, thanks for tuning in. I'm super curious what you think of this podcast so far. Leave a comment, leave a rating, Let me know what you think. Are there topics you want to hear more about? Let me know. I'll see you in the next episode.